Hello, Artemis here. I thought today we'd draw the Therapy Goblin. Now what in the heck is a Therapy Goblin, you might be thinking? Well, valid question. The Therapy Goblin is a character from a play I devised with a group of excellent, truly wonderful, the best humans you'll ever meet. The play is called Helping Hands, and it's about the concept of help, particularly from a neurodivergent or autistic perspective. Now, it's more like a sketch show, so we had like a bunch of little scenes that didn't always interconnect with each other, but we had a couple of recurring characters, one of which was the Therapy Goblin. Now, the idea behind the Therapy Goblin is they help you advocate for yourself and learn to advocate for yourself. And I've been feeling a bit of feelings about being trans with everything going on in the world, and just a couple of days ago was International Non-Binary Day, so I thought I'd have some fun and I'd draw the Therapy Goblin, representing for the non-binary community. In my deepest of deepest beliefs, the Therapy Goblin is a non-binary icon, so I thought we should celebrate that. I started off with a sketch, and in classic Artemis fashion, I started that sketch off with a pencil that didn't work. So once I finally found my little mechanical pencil and was able to actually get started, I got started on the Therapy Goblin with a non-binary pride flag, which I thought was pretty cute. And I had him in a pose carrying a flag sort of like this, and I was really sort of proud of that. And I went in, I roughed in all the details, I was pretty happy with it, up until I got to the face. Now, I can sometimes struggle with drawing perspective, and basically I did the face on a sort of 3/4 view, and I'm not a drawer. I should have said this first and foremost. I am not a visual artist, I'm a performing artist, and I'm just dabbling in a visual medium for funsies today. So you can't really expect anything too flash hot from me. But I got that figure all roughed out, and then I went on to the details of the face. I was really happy with especially how the legs looked, but I went ahead and I ruined it by drawing in this goofball of a face. Like, it looks so seriously ridiculous. Oh my god, I can't believe I drew something like that. But I did anyway, so I'm like, okay, it looks bad, but let's just draw the flag anyway. Let's rough in the details of the flag. Maybe, just maybe, it'll save it. I don't know how I thought it would save it, but I thought maybe it would. So I drew in the flag, and that looks terrible. Yeah, once I looked back at it all finished, I was very certain that it was not good. It was not good at all. So I decided to start again, and this time I drew a lot faster and a lot surer and a lot more straight on to the camera of this image. Not that there's any camera. Well, there was a camera, the one that was recording me drawing, but that's not what I'm trying to say. Anyway, I go with the same sort of idea. Goblin holding a non-binary pride flag, but this time it's with like a double pole thing, so it's more like a banner that they're holding above their head. And I thought that was really cute, so I roughed in all those details with my little sketchy mechanical pencil. Didn't make too many mistakes at all this time around. I just made one knee a bit too short maybe, but everything else was pretty good on first try. So I finished that up, added a couple of little details. I did draw them with like a V-neck to begin with. I don't know why. It looked pretty silly. So I went back and I gave them like a rounded collar and a little neurodiversity pride symbol on the t-shirt. Because, you know, Therapy Goblin can have non-binary pride and neurodivergent pride at the same time, just like me. So yeah, I put the stripes of the flag in, and then once that was done, I was ready to move on to a little bit of ink, which is pretty straightforward. I just go over all of the areas that I had already drawn in pencil with a fine liner. So the inking process was pretty straightforward. It was probably the part I had least issues with. While you watch me do the ink, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about Therapy Goblin themselves. Therapy Goblin came to us as a part of an improvisation exercise in the devising of Helping Hands. We got a prompt, and I can't remember exactly what that prompt was, but the idea was it had something to do with therapy. And it's like, okay, well, generally, if one person's in therapy, they have one therapist. We have 3 people to create a scene with here. What do we do with the third person? So we sort of came up with this vague idea of the third person just sort of circling around the therapy session and saying all the things that the person receiving therapy wish they could say to their terrible therapist, but were too scared to. And so, thus, with a fun little improvisation exercise, the Therapy Goblin was born. This character that will stand up for you where you might be too afraid to. This character that's all about saying no to the kinds of help that are wrong and helping you get the kind of care that you need. And of course, the Therapy Goblin kind of became a symbol for all of us working on the play. Just a really fun character that we could all love and be a sort of mascot for the show as a whole. I became a little bit obsessed with the Therapy Goblin myself. I decided to make them a playable D&D character, drawing them out as my D&D version of the Therapy Goblin. It was the first time I ever drew them, and it was super fun. I was super proud because it was like I hadn't drawn in ages, and the Therapy Goblin really got me back into that idea of drawing, and I was really grateful to them for that. I have since gone on to draw the Therapy Goblin a bunch other times. I drew them in a scenario where they went back and actually attacked the therapist physically for saying terrible things. I drew them as sort of a like coach to a person who was struggling to set boundaries for themselves. And finally, I drew a goblin hug, because sometimes you just need a goblin hug. Why did I feel like drawing them with the non-binary pride flag? Well, firstly, I'm non-binary and I've been needing a bit of validation lately, so it was good for me. But, you know, Therapy Goblin is a theatrical device as much as they are a character, right? They exist as a means of saying the things that we are too scared to say in real life. And as a result, they don't exactly have a gender. In the show, the Therapy Goblin was played by 2 actors, and we sort of showed the changeover actors happening on stage. But one of those was me, but that was sort of symbolic of the fact that the Therapy Goblin could be anyone. You could have a Therapy Goblin in you, and to me that makes Therapy Goblin as a concept, but also as a character, definitely fit within the realm of non-binary gender identity. Plus, yeah, a lot of the scenes, almost all of the scenes to do with Therapy Goblin had to do with navigating a system, the mental health care system, when you have an intersectional identity, particularly an intersection between being neurodivergent and being trans. So, whilst the character Therapy Goblin was talking to isn't necessarily non-binary, it's a very core part of Therapy Goblin's story in the show, and it's a very important part of how I relate to them. But anyway, I finished doing the line work, and I was like, okay, cool. How am I going to colour this? Because I do have some alcohol-based markers that I know I own them, I just can't find them. I have got some grayscale ones though that I know where they are, so I tried it out on my Goblin Fail by doing a grayscale version and then colouring it in over the top to see if it sort of worked for me, but I didn't like it, so I just went with the classic colour pencil over white paper look, and I think it turned out pretty well. The hardest part was probably what I started with, which was roughing in the colours of that neurodiversity symbol in a way that made it sort of look like a gradient. It's really hard with pencils because they're sort of a waxy texture and they don't blend too well, but I did my best. I think it turned out okay. I gave Therapy Goblin a little grey t-shirt. I thought it was kind of cute. It's a cute little grey t-shirt, and I added some shading in certain areas just to really bring out the dimensions of it all. because it was feeling a little flat in pencil. But it's just really lightly shaded in that black to make it look like a grey colour. I think it worked out well. Then I moved on to their skin, and I picked this like sort of warmish, yellowish green tone that wasn't too bright. It was a bit desaturated. And yeah, just pretty lightly all over the skin, but darker on certain patches to add further dimension, making sure I avoided the little eye areas because, you know, Therapy Goblin's little eyes are adorable and we don't want them covered in green. But yeah, adding dimension particularly to the areas of the ears because, you know, they gotta be able to hear, and if those ears are shallow ears, I'm not gonna hear shit. Same with the arms, and then eventually the ankles. I coloured in Therapy Goblin's pants next. I was a bit unsure what colour I wanted to colour them in, but I ended up with this sort of muddy brown tone. I think it complements the skin tone well, although I'm a bit unsure. It feels a little bit too Shrek toned, but I did it. No going back once you started something like that, right? So yeah, I put in the brown and it worked alright. I was finding it a bit hard to get it sort of saturated enough. It looked really sort of patchy, and classic me, I have the level of colouring in skill of a 5-year-old, and I kept going outside of the lines. You can see it a little bit here in the colouring it and of the brown pants, but I think I did it the worst with the black line of the non-binary pride flag up above. You'll see that later. I wouldn't have thought that colouring in with coloured pencil would be so difficult. Anyway, I went on to doing their shoes, and I did them a little red colour with a little white stripe initially, but then I just opted to colour the whole thing red. I think it looked a bit better. But there we go, and all I had left was the non-binary pride flag. So I started on the little poles that were supporting the banner. Those are just a very light sort of orangey yellow colour, like a beige sort of wood tone. And then I went in as hard as I could with the actual colours of the pride flag. I wanted those to be very saturated and very much as a block colour as I could do with pencil. It's very hard to do block colours in pencil, but I tried. And it worked pretty well with that yellow. It was pretty solid and I didn't have too much problems. I'm a fool, and I decided I wanted to try to colour the white line of the flag in white. As you can see, you can't really notice a difference. But I did do it in pencil. There's your evidence. I did attempt to colour white on white. Why? Do not ask me. I think I had the perfect purple tone, to be honest. I was really happy with the colour I had. I was very lucky that I had a pencil that exact right tone. It was one I struggled a little bit to get saturated enough, but I managed to do so, and I think it turned out pretty cool. It was not the purple that was my problem, it was that black line, and I have a bit of resentment for this little black line, I have to tell you. I put a extra layer on top of the perfect purple colour. Can't really see it, but I did it. Yeah. The black line was annoying because the pencil I first encountered was running pretty low, so I tried to press really hard and get it to be really saturated, but it sort of didn't work. So I gave it my best, but then I decided, okay, I'm going to need to layer another black over this black. Also, I went over the lines. That wasn't great. I'm really good at colouring in the lines, as you can see. Anyway, I picked up my watercolour black pencil and I started going over it, but it was smudging like something awful. I tried to rub it out, but I just rubbed off way too much of the black. Luckily, I found a third black pencil, and with that, I was able to go over everything I'd done before and really sort of smooth out that entire line. It still was not perfect, especially underneath, because I'd gone over a bit too much. But that's what the next step was to cover up. I still was not perfect, but I went to fix that up a little bit later. First going in with my purple to really solid that up a little. Right, next is cleanup time. I went to try and hide all my tiny little 4-year-old level of inability to colour in the lines by just adding an extra layer of the fine liner around the edge. So just black fine liner around the outside edge of the entire picture. Some areas ended up thicker than others because I'm not necessarily good at drawing a line right next to a line. You'd think these kinds of things would be simple, but apparently not. Apparently not. Apparently your friendly neighborhood Artemis is in Struggle Town with drawing lines. Who'd have thunk it? But anyway, it's something I did all the way around. I eventually encountered like a little bit of a fear of smudging the lines because, as you can see, I'm not particularly good at holding my hand out of the way, so once I started worrying that I was smudging what I was doing, I was like, oh, what am I going to do? How am I going to do this? I had a bit of a anxiety stem, and I went over to the other side of the image to sort of counteract that fear. But eventually, yeah, I got the whole thing done in little bits. The part I had the most trouble with was, again, that flag. So I started off going okay. I evened out the line on the pole that was sort of a bit wonky by filling in black way too much. So now it looks like I ruined it with the black, but I'd actually ruined it before in my very first line art sketch. But yeah, doing the top of this flag, I kept adding these little lines poking out. So I had to make the top of the flag really thick in order to sort of obscure all of the mistakes I'd made along the way. And the bottom line along the black actually worked really well and hid most of my mistakes there, so that was good. I finished up by doing the goblin's left side of the face, the top of the head, and there we go! A finished non-binary pride Therapy Goblin. I probably will draw some more Therapy Goblin in the future, maybe not for this channel, probably not. I think drawing might be something I need to keep to myself. But either way, I'm really proud of my goblin friend and how they look, and I can't get over the Therapy Goblin and how amazing it is. If you would like me to do a video showing the stats of Therapy Goblin as a playable D&D character, just let me know. I'd be very happy to do that. Make sure you subscribe to see that video if it ever happens. But until then, thank you for watching. Happy International Non-Binary Day, even though I'm a couple of days late. I love you. You are the best. Goodbye. And if you're not trans, don't be shit. Don't do it. Just don't do it. The end. Therapy Goblin does literally step in to therapy sessions to educate the therapists of the world where they're doing wrong, but they also care really deeply that we all accept that we have a little Therapy Goblin in ourselves. We can do the work. We can stand up when people aren't doing the work as they should.